Hey, what's going on guys? Goose here with NewBeeDrone, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build the Hummingbird flight controller kit. For those of you who don't know what the Hummingbird flight controller is, it's our brand new micro brushed board that is running the very popular Silverware firmware. Silverware firmware is very popular in a lot of toy-based drones. What makes Silverware really great is it was designed from the ground up to run only brushed drones, whereas Betaflight, that's running a lot of other micro drones, supports a lot of 5-inch stuff all the way up to X-Class stuff and the micro brush stuff. While there's nothing inherently wrong with that, Silverware focuses just on brush stuff, so it's as efficient as possible for the small focus stuff. That means you can see things like your battery voltage, your craft name, your VTX channel, and other things as well. It also gives you the ability to change your VTX channel and band and transmitting power. So then you don't have to worry about pushing a physical VTX on the actual board and scrolling through channels that way. Super convenient for when you're at races and racing against other people and you need to change channels based on what everyone's running. So without further ado, let's get into the build. The first step we're going to do in the building process is mounting this little pin adapter that comes with your flight controller, and the reason we include this is because if you use one of our B-Seaver receivers, which we highly recommend, you can see it's got these holes all nice to each other, which align perfectly with this little adapter, which makes it super easy to install. And we've made the wiring order exactly the same on the flight controller with the receiver, so it's very easy to install. What we are going to want to do is trim these down a little bit though, because this is way too long. So I like to just grab a little dike, and then I'm going to just trim a little bit off the edge right here. Kind of be mindful because these little parts will fly off. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. We don't want this to stick out too much. Once you've got it down to about that size, what I like to do is push it into the flight controller. And oh, by the way, if you're using a DSM receiver, specifically the V2 version, it only has 3 holes because it does not have telemetry. So what you do in that case is you just snip off this last 4th one, so then you only have 3 and it's going to mount exactly the same. The easiest way I found to install these is just putting it in on the top side and then flipping the flight controller over and letting it sit on the pin adapter. Obviously you want to kind of get it so it's lined up and it's level on the top, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Next we're going to grab our soldering iron and some solder, and we're going to solder each pin one at a time. Perfect. Next, I like to confirm the pin layout. Even though I know we did design this specifically for this, it doesn't hurt. So on the bottom from the very left, you can see we have ground, then voltage, and then receiver or signal, or RX1 and then TX1. And then on the actual receiver, you can see we've got ground, power, and then S-bus, which is our signal, and then TM. So I know that's in the right orientation. Flip the flight controller back over and then insert the pins into the holes. Your bind button should be facing up, meaning you have it in the correct orientation. And then again, we're going to solder each pin one at a time. After that's complete, go ahead and make sure you've got a secure connection. Check underneath to make sure nothing is rubbing or touching. You should have a little bit of a gap right there. Next, we'll start inserting the grommets on the corners of the flight controller board. Grab your cockroach frame and the battery connector on the flight controller, and on the back of the cockroach, you'll see these 2 little gaps right here. What we're going to do is take the connector and actually squeeze it down between this one right here. That will make it so the flight controller lines up and sits in there properly. Go ahead and just pretty much force it in there. The frame will flex and let you push it in there, and then after that go ahead and install the flight controller onto the frame. Now we can start installing the motors. Hummingbird is using props out configuration by default, so if you're using NewBeeDrone branded motors, grab one that has the black and white wires, which is going to spin counterclockwise, and put that in the front left duct. Grab a motor with blue and red wires, which is going to spin clockwise, and put that in the front right duct. Grab another motor with red and blue wires and put that in the rear left duct. And lastly, grab a motor with black and white wires and put that in the rear right duct. Now we can take our camera and plug it into the flight controller. Keep in mind the white wire, which is the signal, is going to be closest towards the button. I like to get the harness started by plugging in a little bit and then grabbing a pair of tweezers and pushing the plug in all the way until it's nice and flush. Now take the small black screws that comes with your flight controller and use them to mount the camera mount onto the board. At this point, you can figure out how you want to route your antennas. The receiver antenna, you can pretty much route whichever way you want. You can glue it to the side of the duck like this. You can have it come straight up. Doesn't really matter. The VTX antenna, I like to have it come up and go into the little holder that's in the actual camera mount, and it clips into place just like that. And now our last step is putting the props on. Just remember, this is props out configuration. And that's it, guys. That is a completed Hummingbird flight controller build. In the next video, I will show you how to bind this receiver to your radio and set it up, as well as show you how to use the OSD functions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.